Welcome to the deep dive. It's so great to have you with us today. I actually want you to start by picturing something with me.
Let's do it.
Imagine you are wandering through a dusty, a neighborhood thrift store.
Oh, yeah.
You know the kind I mean. It smells vaguely of old paper and
Like
mothballs.
my grandmother's attic.
Exactly like that.
Hmm.
And you see a bargain bin of cast-off toys, and you reach in and pull out a little plastic horse head.
Just a completely random piece of plastic.
Right. It's cheap, it's mass-produced, and the faded price tag on it says 99 cents.
Okay.
Now imagine taking that exact same piece of 99-cent plastic, not changing a single physical thing about it, and selling it to someone for over $60.
That sounds absolutely impossible.
It really does, but it actually happened. And the only tool used to multiply that value by, over 60 times was just a few carefully chosen words.
It's one of those case studies that just makes you completely reevaluate everything you thought you knew about value.
Oh, absolutely.
It strips away all the complex economics and leaves you with just raw human connection.
And that is exactly what we are decoding today. We've got a massive stack of sources on the table for this deep dive.
A really fascinating mix, too.
Yeah, on the surface, it looks like a completely random assortment. I mean, we've got notes on garage sales, transcripts from Elon Musk talking about SpaceX, that famously intense Netflix culture HR memo.
Well, that Netflix memo is intense.
It really is. Plus, we've got military ranger instructors and cognitive scientists. But as I was reading through all this material, a really clear, really powerful thread started to emerge.
Yeah, the connections are wild.
We are looking at the ultimate toolkit for the human element, how we connect, how we correct each other, and how we inspire people.
Because the overarching theme here is essentially the mechanics of human influence.
Right.
And the biology of trust. In an era where technical skills are rapidly being automated or, outsourced to AI, these human biological touch points are becoming our ultimate competitive advantage.
The thing that makes us human.
Exactly. Whether you are selling knickknacks, leading a Fortune 500 company, or just trying to get your kids to listen, it all comes down to how human beings process information and react to feedback on a biological level.
Okay, so let's unpack this, starting right at the beginning with that 99-cent plastic horse.
The Rob Walker experiment.
Yes, this comes from an experiment from 2009 by a journalist named Rob Walker. He basically wanted to figure out if storytelling had a quantifiable monetary value.
Like, can you put a dollar amount on a good story?
Exactly. So he goes out and buys about 200 completely random, practically worthless items from thrift stores and garage sales.
Literal junk.
A plastic banana, an old wooden mallet, a useless little jar, and of course the plastic horse head. The average cost was maybe $1 or $2 per item.
So he didn't spend much.
No, he spent a total of about $128 for all 200 items.
And we should clarify for the listener right now, he didn't restore them.
Good point.
He didn't polish them up, paint them, or discover they were actually rare secret antiques or anything like that.
Right. He literally did nothing to the physical objects. Instead, he hired a bunch of writers to attach a unique, compelling, fictional story to every single item.
A completely made-up story.
Completely fictional. Then he put them up for auction on eBay using the story as the item description.
And the result is just mind-blowing.
He sold those 200 items for a combined profit of over $8,000.
$8,000.
An $8,000 profit on junk. That 99-cent plastic horse head sold for over $60. The stories didn't just add a nice vibe, they added real, measurable, cold, hard cash value.
But the real question is why?
Right, because nobody actually thinks the plastic horse is worth $60.
No, of course not. What's fascinating here is the sheer neurochemistry of why this works.
The biology behind it.
Yes. When the buyers read those eBay descriptions, they weren't just processing data about a plastic horse. They were experiencing a highly specific biological reaction.
So it's physical.
Highly physical. Storyteller and researcher J.P. Phillips refers to this as the angel's cocktail.
The angel's cocktail.
Yeah, when a really good narrative hooks you, your brain rewards you with this potent mix of hormones.
Okay, so what exactly is the bartender mixing up in our brains here?
It's a three-part mix. First, you get a hit of dopamine.
Dopamine.
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that makes the story feel intensely important. It aids your memory and aggressively focuses your attention.
So it's the reward chemical.
Exactly. It makes you lean in. Then, oxytocin kicks in.
Oxytocin.
This is the crucial one for influence. Oxytocin builds empathy. It makes you feel a bond, a sense of trust for the person telling the story, or in this case, a bond with the fictional narrative attached to the object.
I've heard it called the bonding hormone before.
It is. It's what mothers release when they nurse their babies. It's powerful stuff. And finally, endorphins are released.
And what do?
They provide a relaxed, creative, happy buzz.
So when you put dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins together, the audience basically becomes less critical, less skeptical, and vastly more emotionally invested.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They aren't buying the plastic. They are buying the cocktail of emotions the story gave them. They are paying for the neurochemical experience.
Man, that connects so perfectly to Simon Sinek's concept of the golden circle, which comes up a ton in our leadership sources today.
Oh, absolutely it does.
We've probably heard of Sinek's golden circle, starting with the why. But what's fascinating is mapping that directly to the angel's cocktail we just talked about.
It's the same mechanism.
It really is. Sinek argues that most companies and most leaders start their communication from the outside of the circle. They start with the what?
The features and the facts.
Yeah, they say, here's what we make, here is our quarterly revenue, here are the features of our software.
And if we look at brain anatomy, what messaging speaks exclusively to the rational brain? The neocortex.
The logic center.
Right. The neocortex understands facts, figures, and features. But here is the critical limitation of the neocortex. It does not drive human behavior.
Logic doesn't inspire action.
Exactly. Logic does not inspire action.
So when a CEO stands up in an all-hands meeting and just rattles off the quarterly metrics and the KPI spreadsheets, they are effectively starving the room of oxytocin and dopamine.
They're giving them a dry presentation with zero biological reward. Sinek points out that the greatest, most influential organizations, like Apple, start from the inside of the golden circle.
The why.
They start with the why. They start by explaining why they exist, their core belief.
Right.
Like Apple saying, everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo.
And how does that affect the brain?
When you communicate the why, you completely bypass the analytical neocortex and speak directly to the limbic brain.
The limbic brain.
This is the older, evolutionary part of the brain that controls our feelings, our gut instincts, and our decision-making.
And our sources say the limbic brain doesn't even have a capacity for language, right?
That's right. It has no capacity for language.
Which is why it's so hard to explain why we love a certain brand or trust a certain person. We just say, it just feels right.
That feeling right is the angel's cocktail flooding the limbic system. That is exactly where trust and loyalty are born.
So we know we need to hit the limbic brain, but how do we actually construct a story or a message that does that?
That's the hard part.
Yeah, because if I'm managing a team of engineers, I can't just start making up fictional stories about thrift store items.
No, they would look at you like you were crazy.
Right. So to get a practical framework, our sources point us to Pixar.
The masters of storytelling.
Specifically, Andrew Stanton. He's the writer and director behind movies like Finding Nemo and WALL-E.
Incredible films.
His central commandment for storytelling, whether it's an animated movie or a corporate presentation, is simply, make me care.
Make me care. If you don't make the audience care, nothing else matters.
And Stanton provides a brilliant, highly tactical blueprint for how to actually make people care.
First, he says you need a promise or a hook.
A reason to listen.
You need to signal to the audience immediately that this story is going somewhere interesting and is worth their time. But the second rule is perhaps his most insightful.
This is the math one, right?
Yes. He says, give your audience 2 + 2, but don't say 4.
Wait, give them 2 + 2, but don't say 4.
Right.
Meaning, deliberately withhold the conclusion. Isn't the point of business communication to be as clear as possible?
It is, but clarity doesn't mean spoon-feeding your audience.
Yeah.
You have to let the audience connect the dots themselves.
Because if they do the work, they care more.
Exactly. When people arrive at the conclusion on their own, they feel a sense of ownership over the idea. It engages their brain actively rather than passively.
Going back to the neurochemistry.
Yes. When the brain solves a puzzle, when it connects 2 + 2 and realizes it's 4, it gives itself a massive hit of dopamine.
Oh, wow.
You are making your audience reward themselves.
That makes so much sense. If I just say, our new software saves time, that's a boring 4.
Very boring. No dopamine there.
But if I say, our competitor's software requires 12 clicks to process an invoice, and ours requires 2.
Now you've given them 2 + 2.
Their brain says, oh, wow, this saves a ton of time. And they feel smart for figuring it out.
Exactly. Stanton's other rules are to maintain a single, strong theme throughout the narrative. Don't muddy the waters with tangents.
Just focused.
And finally, invoke a sense of wonder. Take them out of their mundane reality, even for a moment.
But here is the rub. To execute Stanton's blueprint, to really know how to deliver a hook and gauge if your audience is actually connecting those dots, you need an underlying foundation.
You do.
You can't just talk at people, you have to read them.
Which brings us to our next major source.
Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry and Gene Greaves. Because you simply cannot influence an audience, whether it's an auditorium of 1,000 people or just a one-on-one meeting with a direct report, if you lack emotional intelligence.
That is the absolute bedrock. Bradberry and Greaves break EQ down into 4 distinct pillars.
Let's go through them.
The first is self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
This isn't just a vague sense of your personality. It's a rigorous, real-time understanding of your own feelings and behaviors.
Like knowing you're having a bad day.
More specific than that, it's knowing that because you had a frustrating commute this morning, your baseline patience is currently low.
Right.
It's separating the temporary emotion of the commute from the permanent reality of your workday.
And once you are aware of that, you move to the second pillar, self-management.
This is where things get really practical. It's controlling your reactions.
The authors offer a tool here called the emotion versus reason list, which I found totally fascinating. Let's play this out really quickly.
Okay.
Say I'm a manager, and I have an employee who is incredibly likable. Everyone loves him. He brings donuts on Fridays.
A great guy.
But he is severely underperforming, and I know I need to let him go.
That is a classic management nightmare.
It really is.
Your emotions are screaming. He's a nice guy. He has a family. The team will hate me. This will be so awkward.
But my reason is telling me he is dragging down the team's metrics. Clients are complaining. Other employees are having to pick up his slack.
And it's fundamentally unfair to the high performers.
Right. And usually the emotion wins because it's just louder.
Exactly. The limbic system hijacks the neocortex. But by physically writing down your emotional impulses in one column and your logical reasoning in another, you force your brain to slow down.
You're taking it out of your head and putting it on paper.
You acknowledge the validity of the emotions without letting them dictate the action. You balance the two sides.
Okay, so I've managed my own internal chaos. The third pillar of EQ is social awareness.
Turning your radar outward.
This is where you read the room. And a massive part of this is reading body language. The book gets very granular here.
It does. It tells you to check the eyes first.
The eyes.
A sudden increase in blink rate can indicate extreme stress or even deception. Look at the mouth. You can spot a sincere smile versus a fake, polite smile because a real smile engages the muscles around the eyes.
The crow's feet.
Yeah, a fake one is just the mouth. Look at the shoulders. Are they tight and raised toward the ears, indicating defensiveness, or open and relaxed?
And they mention a surprisingly simple tactic for social awareness, using people's first names.
It sounds so basic.
It does, almost like a cheap sales trick. But neurologically, when someone hears their own name, it acts like a beacon.
It instantly builds a bond and makes them feel seen.
Which leads directly into the fourth and final pillar, relationship management.
The culmination of the first 3.
It's using your self-awareness, your self-management, and your social awareness to interact effectively.
And a critical component here is alignment.
Alignment between what you say and what you do.
Exactly. If your words are saying one thing, but your body language is saying another, the human brain will always believe the body language.
Right. If I'm praising my team for a great quarter, but my arms are crossed tightly, I'm avoiding eye contact, and my voice is flat because I'm secretly stressed about next quarter's budget.
The team won't absorb the praise. They will absorb the stress. Your body language has to match the message.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of leadership, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm an introvert.
I hear this all the time.
Yeah, like I'm not a loud, charismatic storyteller who commands a stage. I can't do this. A lot of this sounds like it requires you to be a naturally extroverted, larger-than-life personality.
But our sources explicitly push back on that. They reference the work of Susan Cain,
who studies the power of introverts.
Yes. Introverts actually often make the best storytellers and the most emotionally intelligent leaders.
Really? Why is that?
Because introverts naturally excel at observation. They listen deeply.
They aren't just waiting for their turn to talk.
Exactly. They don't speak just to fill the silence. They think about problems from multiple angles before articulating a thought.
So their social awareness is naturally high.
Often off the charts. When they finally do craft a narrative or deliver a message, it isn't empty charisma. It has real, undeniable substance.
Storytelling and EQ aren't about being loud.
No, they are a biological hack to attract the people who resonate with your specific frequency.
Which sets the perfect stage for the most difficult part of human interaction and the focus of our next deep dive into these sources.
Yes.
We know how to attract people and build trust, but what happens when things go wrong?
They always go wrong eventually.
How do we correct behavior? We are talking about redefining feedback.
Ah, feedback. The gift we all love to hate.
Seriously. We have a clip summarized in our sources from an interview with Elon Musk at the World Government Summit in Dubai.
A very telling interview.
The interviewer asks Musk what his biggest challenge in life is. Now, this is the guy building reusable rockets and trying to colonize Mars. You'd think his biggest challenge is orbital mechanics or battery density.
But he takes a long pause.
Yeah?
And he says his absolute biggest challenge is establishing a corrective feedback loop and, more importantly, maintaining it over time.
Just getting people to tell him the truth.
He points out how incredibly difficult it is to get people to tell you the unvarnished truth when human nature dictates that they just want to tell you what you want to hear.
Bill Gates is quoted in the stack saying the exact same thing. He says, "We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve."
The titans of industry agree feedback is a fundamental necessity.
But let's be honest, corporately, we are terrible at it. We all know the dreaded feedback sandwich.
Oh, the feedback sandwich.
HR departments have pushed this for decades. You praise the person, then you deliver the harsh criticism, and then you quickly praise them again to soften the blow.
What Arcana Shetty and other researchers in our stack reveal is that neurologically, the feedback sandwich is a disaster.
It doesn't soften the blow.
It doesn't soften the blow. It actually induces a state of paranoia.
Paranoia. How so?
Because the brain quickly learns the pattern. When you start with the praise, the recipient doesn't actually hear it. Their brain is just bracing for impact, waiting for the but.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop?
Right. The praise feels manipulative and insincere. Then the actual critical message, the part they need to hear to improve, gets entirely lost in the middle metal.
And the concluding praise.
Ignored completely, because the recipient is already emotionally reacting to the criticism. It creates a culture of anxiety where nobody trusts a compliment.
So, if the feedback sandwich is dead, what replaces it? This brings us to a massive concept in our reading today. Kim Scott's Radical Candor.
A fantastic framework.
Scott is a former executive at Google and Apple, and she created a framework that completely redefines how we talk to each other. It's a brilliantly simple 2x2 matrix based on two intersecting dimensions.
Care personally and challenge directly.
Yes, on the vertical axis, you have care personally. On the horizontal axis, you have challenge directly. Let's explore the quadrants.
Let's start with what happens when you challenge someone directly, but you do not care about them personally. Scott calls that obnoxious aggression.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. In a highly competitive, fast-paced corporate environment, doesn't challenge directly just become a free pass for people to act like jerks?
Like, they say, hey, I'm just being radically candid. Your presentation was garbage.
Exactly.
That is the most common misunderstanding of radical candor. And that is exactly why the care personally axis is so vital.
It has to balance out.
If you say your presentation was garbage, without establishing that you genuinely care about that person's success, you aren't being radically candid. You are just being obnoxiously aggressive.
It's the classic toxic boss who yells and leaves you feeling worthless.
Right. It might get short-term results through fear, but it destroys trust and long-term performance.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the opposite? What if you don't care personally and you don't challenge directly?
That quadrant is called manipulative insincerity.
It sounds awful.
This is the realm of office politics, backstabbing, and passive-aggressive behavior. You aren't telling them the truth because you don't want to deal with the conflict and you don't care about their growth anyway. You are only protecting your own agenda.
Then we get to the quadrant where I think most of us live. Most people want to be nice.
Yes, they do.
But Scott argues this might be the most dangerous quadrant of all. Ruinous empathy.
Ruinous empathy.
This is when you care personally, you care so much about not hurting their feelings that you fail to challenge directly. You withhold the truth.
The sources give a heartbreaking example of ruinous empathy.
Simon the salesman.
Yes. Imagine a salesman named Simon. Simon has a massive, booming personality, but he consistently comes across to clients as incredibly arrogant and dismissive.
A tough personality to manage.
But his manager gets to know Simon personally and realizes the arrogance is actually just a defense mechanism. Simon is actually deeply insecure.
So, out of ruinous empathy, the manager decides not to tell Simon that his perceived arrogance is alienating clients. The manager thinks, I know the real Simon. I don't want to crush his fragile self-esteem. I'm being a good, kind manager by sparing his feelings.
But look at the systemic damage that
It's
causes.
massive.
Simon's sales continue to plummet because he doesn't know he needs to change his tone. Eventually, the numbers are so bad that the company has no choice but to fire him. Simon loses his livelihood.
And the rest of the team.
They're furious because they had to watch underperformance be tolerated for a year, and the company lost valuable clients.
Ruinous empathy feels warm and fuzzy in the moment, but it is ultimately destructive to everyone involved.
Which brings us to the magic quadrant.
Radical candor.
This happens when you care personally, Andy. You challenge directly. You give them honest, specific, direct guidance.
You sit Simon down and say, Simon, I care about your career here, and I want you to crush your quotas. But your tone on these client calls is coming across as arrogant, and it's costing you commissions. Let's practice a different approach together.
It's vital to note, though, that striving for radical candor requires us to examine our own blind spots.
Because it's not always applied equally.
No. We have to look at who we are radically candid with. The sources bring in social psychologist Dolly Chu, who writes about the empathy bias.
This was a fascinating nuance. Chu argues that our desperate striving to be good people actually creates massive blind spots in how we manage others.
Because our brains process millions of pieces of information a second, they rely on neurological shortcuts.
Right.
One of those shortcuts is that our empathy naturally flows easiest and fastest toward people who look, think, act, and speak just like us. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism.
So a manager might unconsciously give great, caring, radically candid feedback to an employee who reminds them of a younger version of themselves.
But they might withhold that same crucial feedback from someone of a different demographic or background out of a fear of being seen as insensitive or not good.
Wow.
The manager is using ruinous empathy on the diverse employee, effectively stunting their career growth while accelerating the career of the employee who looks like them.
So what's the solution?
Chu says we need to drop the utopian, impossible ideal of being purely good and strive instead to be goodish.
Goodish.
A goodish person acknowledges they have biases. They actively work to recognize and mitigate them, ensuring everyone on the team gets the radical candor they deserve, regardless of how similar they are to the manager.
And if you want to see the ultimate stress test of radical candor and dealing with your own flaws, our stack includes a phenomenal anecdote from the U.S. Army Ranger School.
One of the most grueling leadership courses on the planet.
The instructors there are constantly observing, and they are always on the lookout for what they call spotlight rangers.
A spotlight ranger is a fascinating psychological profile.
Right.
It's a candidate who is absolutely spectacular when the instructor's spotlight is on them. They hit every target, they run the fastest, they carry the heaviest gear, they shout the loudest.
But the moment the instructors turn away?
The moment the spotlight is off, they become terrible teammates.
Sure.
They are selfish, they hoard food, they refuse to help carry a struggling teammate's load. They're only performing for the authority figure.
But if the instructors turn away, how do they catch them?
They use intense peer reviews. They rely on the candidate's peers to provide radical candor.
They ask the squad.
Yes. They ask, would you share a foxhole with this person in combat? Are they a good teammate when things get miserable?
And when the peers inevitably point out a spotlight ranger,
The instructors pull that candidate aside and deliver the feedback bluntly. They say, your peers think you are stubborn, selfish, and impossible to work with.
ouch. That is a heavy hit to the ego.
Here is the critical part and the core lesson for corporate leadership. The instructors do not immediately drop the candidate from the course because of the negative feedback.
They don't.
No, they are testing their reaction. If the candidate puffs up their chest, makes excuses, and says, oh, my squad is just jealous, they're weak, they don't understand my leadership style, well, they're immediately dropped from the program.
But if the candidate takes a breath, absorbs the blow, and says, whoa, I had no idea I was coming across that way. That's on me. I really need to work on that. What happens then?
They were kept in the program.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The military isn't looking for perfect people. It's not the initial imperfection that gets you picked out.
It is entirely about how you deal with your imperfections when they are pointed out to you by your peers.
Feedback isn't an attack. It is a biological and operational necessity for survival, whether you are in a muddy foxhole or a corporate boardroom.
If we connect this to the broader societal picture, creating a culture of deep, caring feedback has implications far beyond just workplace efficiency.
This part of the source material was really striking.
Our sources note a very modern implication of this, and we should look at this strictly as an organizational dynamic. The text suggests that a strong, face-to-face feedback culture within an organization can actually serve as a powerful safeguarding tool against online radicalization.
That's a profound leap. How does that mechanism work?
The rationale provided is that the internet acts as an incredibly potent, isolated echo chamber. Extreme beliefs can be confirmed and intensified without any rational scrutiny or physical human contact.
Right, people fall down rabbit holes.
However, if an organization has built a high-trust, offline environment where candid, face-to-face feedback is the absolute norm, leaders and peers are uniquely positioned to notice sudden, unexplained behavioral changes.
So, if a team member who is normally open and collaborative suddenly becomes highly isolated, closed off, or drastically changes their interpersonal behavior, a culture of radical candor means people don't just ignore it.
They don't use manipulative insincerity to look the other way.
Correct.
The pre-existing culture of open dialogue allows leaders to intervene safely. They can say, hey, I've noticed a real shift in you lately, and because I care about you, I want to check in.
It allows the organization to spot someone who might be falling down a dangerous online rabbit hole and offer connection before they are fully isolated.
It just shows how deep the ripples of human connection really go.
Okay, so conceptually, we are sold. We know ruinous empathy destroys teams. We know we need to seek out and deliver radical candor.
We have the theory.
But let's get down to brass tacks. If I'm a manager listening to you right now, sitting in a cubicle, knowing I have to have a hard conversation at 2 p.m. today, how do I actually initiate that terrifying conversation without everyone ending up in tears or a shouting match?
This is where we transition from theory to the tactical frameworks outlined in our sources. And to understand the tactics, we have to return to the biology of the brain.
The biology again.
Yes. Researcher Archana Shetty provides incredible insight into what she calls the survival mode of feedback.
Let's talk about the physical reaction. When your boss sends a Slack message that says, "Can you step into my office? I want to give you some feedback." What physically happens to your body?
Your stomach drops.
Yeah.
Your heart rate accelerates. Your palms might sweat. Your brain literally perceives the concept of feedback as a physical threat, akin to a predator in the wild.
An actual predator.
Alarm bells ring in the amygdala, and your body is suddenly flooded with cortisol, the primary stress hormone.
And when you are flooded with cortisol, what happens to your cognitive function?
Your emotional brain puts you into safe mode. Think of a computer crashing and rebooting in safe mode. It only runs the most basic, essential programs required to keep the machine alive.
It shuts down complex processing.
Yes. When a human is in emotional safe mode, they literally cannot access their higher-order executive thinking skills in the neocortex. They cannot process complex guidance, nuance, or constructive criticism.
So if I try to give my team member radical candor while they're flooded with cortisol, I'm essentially talking to a brick wall.
They literally cannot hear you.
How do I bypass that biological defense mechanism?
Shetty outlines 5 specific emotional intelligence tactics for delivery to neutralize that cortisol threat.
Step 1.
Step 1. Step back and pause. Before you give the feedback, check your own emotional state. If you're angry, delay the meeting. Step 2. Name your emotions. If you are frustrated, silently acknowledge to yourself, I am frustrated. Labeling the emotion brings neurological control back to your rational brain.
Step 3 is crucial. Shift to appreciation. Intentionally focus your mind on something you genuinely appreciate about the person. This shifts your internal state from a combative posture to a collaborative one.
Step 4. Create a safe space. Pay deep attention to their body language when they walk in. If they look terrified, spend the first few minutes calming their nerves. Regulate the environment.
In step 5.
Show empathetic concern. Demonstrate unequivocally that you care about their success, the care it personally access, before you deliver the correction.
It's one thing to hear the steps, but let's actually role play this because this is where most leaders fail. Let's say you are my employee and you have missed 3 major deadlines this month.
Okay.
It's unacceptable and I have to address it. I'm going to try 3 different approaches.
I'm the underperforming employee. Let's hear it.
Attempt number 1. Hey, you're doing great work overall. Really love your energy. The deadlines have been a little fuzzy lately, but no big deal. We'll catch up next month. Keep up the good work.
Classic ruinous empathy. As the employee, my brain only heard great work and no big deal. I have zero incentive to change my behavior, and you have failed to fix the operational problem.
Right. Okay, attempt number 2. Listen, you've missed 3 deadlines. It's completely unprofessional. It's making me look bad. And if you miss one more, you're on a performance improvement plan. Fix it.
Obnoxious aggression. My cortisol just spiked through the roof. I am now in fight or flight mode. I'm not thinking about how to improve my time management. I'm thinking about how much I hate you and how quickly I can update my resume. You've created an enemy, not a better employee.
Okay, attempt number 3. This uses a concept from the 4-block video in our stack about embracing vulnerability. Hey, I want to have a conversation with you about the recent deadlines. I'll be honest, having this conversation makes me incredibly uncomfortable. I naturally avoid confrontation, but I'm going to tell you this because I care deeply about your trajectory here, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. So whatever I'm about to say, please receive it as a gift because doing this is hard for me.
Wow. Stop right there. That is incredibly disarming. As the recipient, my cortisol response is completely neutralized.
Why does it work so well?
Because you aren't attacking me from an infallible position of power. You are stepping into a vulnerable space entirely for my benefit. You named your discomfort, which makes me trust you. The psychological safety is established, and now my neocortex is fully online to receive the challenge directly part of the conversation.
You put the discomfort on the table, and it evaporates. It's a phenomenal tactic. And Forbes provides a great 4-step process that aligns perfectly with this to guide the rest of the conversation.
Step 1. Observe with both eyes open.
This means being strictly objective and stripping away your personal bias. If an employee's desk is messy, don't assume they're a lazy person. Look at the objective facts of their work output.
Step 2 involves asking yourself 3 critical questions before you ever open your mouth. First, have I identified the exact specific behavior I want changed? Second, what has this person's recent life experience been? Are they dealing with a sick parent or a newborn at home? Context matters.
And the third question.
Perhaps the most important, self-audit. Whose needs are being met by this feedback? Am I just venting my own frustration to make myself feel powerful, or am I genuinely acting to help them improve?
If it's the former, keep your mouth shut. Step 3 is building trust during the delivery. Instead of just dumping feedback on them, connect the required change to their own stated goals.
How would you phrase that?
Say something like, I know you're gunning for a promotion to senior director this year. I'd like to invite you to receive some feedback that I think will help remove a roadblock getting in your way.
You've instantly positioned yourself as an ally sitting on the same side of the table, rather than an adversary across from them.
And finally, Forbes' step 4 is to set actionable steps. Don't just point out the problem and walk away. Co-construct the solution. Ask them, what do you think we can do differently next time? How can I support you in hitting this deadline?
But the work doesn't stop when the meeting ends. And this is a massive blind spot for leaders. Once the employee starts making those changes, you must acknowledge it. The sources warn about a psychological trap called the sustaining expectations effect.
This was originally observed in classroom research. Let's say a student has a well-earned reputation as a troublemaker. They disrupt class every day. But one Monday, the kid decides to turn over a new leaf. They sit quietly, raise their hand, and act perfectly.
But the teacher, blinded by past expectations and their own bias, doesn't notice the good behavior. They still treat the kid with suspicion and treat them like a nuisance.
What happens to the kid? The kid thinks, well, if I'm going to be treated like a bad kid no matter what I do, why bother trying? They give up and revert right back to being a troublemaker.
Adults in the corporate workplace are no different. If you ask an employee to change their behavior, and they put in the hard work to do it, but you fail to recognize it because you are still viewing them through the lens of their past mistakes, you will extinguish that positive behavior immediately.
This is exactly why management expert Kevin Eikenberry's model is so powerful. He argues that the very word feedback is fundamentally flawed because it is entirely focused on the past.
You cannot change the past.
He suggests we need to embrace feed forward.
Feed forward. It shifts the entire orientation of the conversation. Instead of giving negative feedback about what went wrong yesterday, which triggers defensiveness, offer negative feed forward.
This is corrective guidance on how to avoid the mistake tomorrow.
Next time we run this report, let's try formatting it this way. It's actionable and future-focused.
And you combine that with positive feed forward, affirming what they should continue doing to improve future performance. Eikenberry suggests a brilliant 70-30 rule.
When you are having a developmental conversation, aim for 70% corrective feed forward and 30% positive reinforcement of their strengths. The positivity acts as the anchor that allows them to absorb the correction.
If you are looking for specific tactical phrasing to use in these meetings, the sources highlight two very clean models. The first is the AID model: action, impact, desired outcome.
It removes all the emotional baggage.
Yeah.
You say, when you did X, the action, it caused Y, the impact on the team. So in the future, I'd like you to do Z, the desired outcome.
It's so clean. And the second is the stop, start, continue method, which is fantastic for quarterly reviews. You give the person 3 specific behaviors they need to start doing, 3 new behaviors they need to start doing, and importantly, 3 things they are already doing exceptionally well that they must continue doing.
But we have to remember, communication is a two-way street. Being a great leader isn't just about giving feedback. It's about knowing how to receive it without your own amygdala flooding your system with cortisol.
Dr. Tasha Eurich offers the 3R model for receiving feedback gracefully.
First, receive. When someone gives you tough feedback, your immediate instinct will be to defend yourself, to explain why they are wrong. Don't do it. Bite your tongue and count to 5 in your head to let the initial emotional spike pass. Just ask clarifying questions to ensure you understand their perspective.
Second, reflect. Do not jump to an immediate solution or agreement in the room. Thank them for the feedback, go away, and think about what you heard. Process the emotion in private.
And third, respond. Go back to the person a day later, share your understanding of the issue, and explain the specific steps you are going to take to change.
Kim Scott adds a great cultural tactic here. If you want to build a radical candor culture, you can't just mandate it from the top down. You have to ask for it first. You have to prove you can take the hit.
She suggests every manager should have a go-to question they ask their team regularly. Something like, is there anything I could do or stop doing that would make it easier to work with me?
And when we engage in this dialogue, we must be incredibly vigilant about unconscious bias. Cognitive scientist Therese Houston points out a glaring systemic issue in corporate feedback.
Her research shows that when giving feedback to someone who stands out, particularly women in male-dominated fields, managers tend to sugarcoat the truth and spout vague pronouncements.
Right. A woman might sit through a performance review and hear, "You're so nice to be around, you're a great team player," which sounds nice, but it gives her absolutely zero actionable data to improve her skills and advance her career. It's ruinous empathy driven by gender dynamics.
Or conversely, they receive highly subjective, personality-based criticism. They are told they are too aggressive or abrasive when a man demonstrating the exact same behavior would be lauded as assertive or a go-getter.
So how does a manager navigate that minefield and provide fair, objective feedback on things like tone or perception?
Houston offers a brilliant linguistic tool to reduce this bias and lower the recipient's defenses. If you need to tell someone that their tone is coming across poorly, frame it objectively as a perception, not a fact. You use distancing language.
How does that sound?
You say, I'm not sure if this feedback is fair or unfair, but I wanted you to know it's the impression some people in the room are having.
That is so smart. By distancing yourself slightly and presenting it as an observation of the room's perception rather than an absolute truth about their character, you remove the personal attack. You open the door for a productive, analytical conversation about how to manage that perception.
Okay, so we've looked at the biology, the individual frameworks, and the interpersonal tactics. We know how to do this one-on-one. But this raises the ultimate organizational question. How do you take these deeply human, highly nuanced skills and scale them across a massive enterprise?
Yes. Because it's one thing to be radically candid with a team of 5. It is entirely different to scale that culture across 10,000 employees. This brings us to the ultimate case study in our stack, the legendary Netflix Culture Memo.
This document essentially rewrote the rules of corporate management.
Netflix starts by fundamentally, unapologetically redefining the corporate metaphor. They explicitly state in their memo, we are a pro-sports team, not a family.
Which flies in the face of so much corporate jargon. Every company loves to put on their career page, we're a family here.
But Netflix argues that families are based on unconditional love and, frankly, dysfunction. You don't fire your quirky uncle from the family dinner table just because he tells bad jokes.
But a professional sports team, a pro team, is entirely ruthlessly focused on performance. It requires having the absolute best player in the world in every single position. They will support you, they will train you, they will pay you top of market, but if you cannot perform at a championship level, you will be traded so a better player can step in.
I have to play devil's advocate again here. To enforce this, Netflix managers use what they call the keeper test.
The keeper test.
The manager regularly asks themselves, if this employee told me they were leaving for a competitor tomorrow, would I fight hard to keep them? If the answer is no, Netflix fires them quickly with a generous severance. That sounds like a dystopian nightmare of constant job insecurity. Doesn't that skyrocket the cortisol levels of every employee?
It's a highly polarizing approach, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Netflix argues that for elite performers, the A players, it actually reduces stress.
Reduces stress?
Yes, A players are most frustrated when they have to carry the load for B or C players. By rigorously applying the keeper test, Netflix ensures that every single person in the building is a stunning colleague. You are surrounded only by people who are excellent at their jobs.
And when you have a team composed entirely of elite, highly competent adults, you can implement their next incredibly famous core principle: people over process.
Netflix believes that you get vastly better, faster, more innovative outcomes when you give highly responsible people the context to make decisions, rather than suffocating them with endless rules and HR manuals.
This led to their famous almost no rules rule. Their vacation policy is literally 2 words long. Take vacation, you decide when and how long.
Their corporate expense policy is 5 words. Act in Netflix's best interests. They don't have massive compliance departments policing every $20 cab ride because they only hire adults who have proven they can be trusted with the company's money.
They practice a management philosophy called context, not control. Instead of a boss dictating every single step of a project and micromanaging the execution, the boss provides the strategic context. They define the overarching goals, the budget, the timeline.
And then they designate an informed captain.
This captain is given the absolute authority to make the final call on the project.
But, and this is crucial to making the system work without devolving into chaos, the informed captain is expected to farm for dissent.
They cannot just make a decision in a vacuum.
Right. They must actively seek out people across the company who disagree with their plan and force them to stress test it. They actively solicit radical candor.
And once the captain has heard the dissent, weighed the options, and makes a final decision, what happens to the people who disagreed?
Everyone, even the people who passionately, loudly argued against the plan, is expected to disagree, then commit. You don't passive-aggressively sabotage the project because your idea wasn't chosen. You commit fully and professionally to making the captain's decision succeed.
It creates a culture they describe as uncomfortably exciting. They embrace risk and ambition. The memo actually quotes the French writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
A great quote.
He said, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea.
Teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. That is the ultimate poetic articulation of Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. It's starting with the why. You aren't managing the wood gathering. You are inspiring the vision.
But you cannot just drop average, untrained employees into a no-rules environment and expect them to build a ship. They will drown.
Exactly.
To thrive in a Netflix-style culture, the individual employees must possess a high degree of personal maturity. And that perfectly aligns with our final major framework today, Stephen R. Covey's foundational classic, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
When you look at the 7 Habits culturally, rather than just as a self-help book, it is the exact roadmap required to build the kind of workforce Netflix demands.
It absolutely is. Covey structured the 7 habits not as a random list, but as a maturity continuum. It's a progression. Habits 1, 2, and 3 are what he calls the private victories.
Their purpose is to move an individual from a state of dependence, waiting to be told what to do, to a state of total independence.
Let's break those down. Habit 1, be proactive. This means taking absolute responsibility for your actions and your environment. You don't blame the economy or your boss or the weather.
Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Define your goals and your core values before you start working.
Habit 3, put first things first. This is the execution phase. It's prioritizing the important over the merely urgent.
If an employee masters those first 3 habits, they are independent. They are self-managing. They don't need a massive HR manual telling them how to expense a cab ride because they are proactive and principled. They are the baseline requirement for the Netflix keeper test.
But Covey makes a brilliant point. Independence isn't the final goal of human interaction. To build a championship team, to achieve things no single person could do alone, you need to move beyond independence. You need interdependence.
And that requires the public victories. Habits 4, 5, and 6.
Habit 4, think win-win. It's moving away from a scarcity mindset where your success means my failure and seeking mutually beneficial solutions.
Habit 5, seek first to understand. than to be understood.
Which is pure emotional intelligence. It's the ultimate application of the social awareness and active listening we talked about earlier.
It directly neutralizes the cortisol threat response because the other person feels entirely heard before you ever make your point.
Exactly. And finally, habit 6, synergize. This is the apex. It's the realization that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
It's leveraging the diverse perspectives, the radical candor, and the healthy dissent of the team to achieve creative solutions that simply did not exist independently.
This raises a massive, almost existential question. We spent this entire deep dive talking about mastering the human element, EQ, storytelling, feedback, interdependence. But we have to look at the horizon. We have to return to Elon Musk's interview at the World Government Summit.
Musk paints a staggering, highly disruptive vision of the future of work.
He stated that within 10 years, it will be highly unusual to build a car that isn't fully autonomous, but he goes much further. He is predicting the advent of artificial general intelligence, AGI, that massively surpasses human cognitive capability across the board.
He envisions massive systemic job disruption as algorithms and robotics replace human labor, potentially necessitating entirely new economic structures like universal basic income.
He even theorizes that to stay relevant, to keep up with the processing power of AGI, humans will eventually have to merge with digital intelligence, becoming cyborgs or leaving behind permanent digital ghosts.
So the critical question for the listener is this. If Musk is right, and the rapid advancement of AI suggests he is, if AI and automation take over the technical execution of our jobs, if the algorithms can write the code faster, drive the supply chain truck safer, and balance the global spreadsheets flawlessly, what is left for the human worker?
That is the ultimate synthesis of everything we've talked about today. As the hard technical skills become entirely commoditized by artificial intelligence, the so-called soft skills will undergo a massive revaluation.
They will become the absolute premium, indispensable, non-outsourceable skills of the future economy.
The machines will handle the process. The humans must handle the people.
Your ability to craft a compelling narrative that triggers the angel's cocktail of dopamine and oxytocin. Your emotional intelligence to read the subtle body language of a room and manage your own cortisol flood.
Your courage to deliver radical candor with deep, genuine personal care.
Your capacity to seek first, to understand and synergize diverse viewpoints into a high-trust, interdependent team. AGI cannot replicate the biological resonance of shared human vulnerability.
Wow. Okay. As we wrap up this incredible journey, let's take a breath and recap the sheer amount of ground we've covered today. We started with a 99-cent plastic horse and an $8,000 profit, proving the measurable biological power of storytelling, and starting with your why.
We dug deep into the neurochemistry of connection, learning how to conquer our own amygdala, managing the cortisol flood so we can engage in radical candor without destroying our teams with ruinous empathy or obnoxious aggression.
We explored the rigorous, uncompromising standard of the Netflix keeper test, the necessity of vulnerability in leadership, and Covey's roadmap for moving from mere independence to deep, synergistic interdependence.
And we faced the reality of an AI-driven future, where our distinctly human skills, our empathy, our courage, our connection are our only true competitive moat.
To you listening right now, whether you are managing a massive tech firm, trying to get a scrappy startup off the ground, or honestly, just trying to improve communication with your teenager at the family dinner table, these tools are universally applicable.
Listening deeply, reflecting carefully, managing your emotional state, and challenging directly with deep personal care. These are the fundamental mechanics of human connection.
I will leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. We talked about Elon Musk's idea of digital ghosts, the vast ocean of data, emails, Slack messages, and social media posts that will live on servers long after we are gone.
In a future where artificial intelligence handles all of our logistical day-to-day tasks, will the true legacy of our lives simply be how bravely, how clearly, and how kindly we communicated?
If your digital ghost could only repeat the stories you chose to tell and the candid, caring feedback you gave to the people you loved and led, would you be proud of what it had to say?